YouTube, welcome back to my channel. Today I am talking to you about this book, Beloved by Toni Morrison. This is the novel that Toni Morrison won the Pulitzer Prize for. She's also a Nobel Prize winner. You might know her for either one of those things, but if you haven't gotten a chance to read this book, I'm going to tell you a little bit about it and why you should probably pick it up. Sethe was enslaved. She lived on a plantation called Sweet Home with her husband Hallie and several other men. Hallie's mother, baby Shugs, Hallie worked on weekends to pay for his mother's price, so he bought his mother's freedom by working weekends. I thought that alone is a fantastic story. When baby Shugs leaves the plantation, Sethe comes along to be the woman on the plantation. So baby Shugs and Sethe have never met each other. As the story progresses, the slaves on the plantation decided to run away. Their situation has changed. Mr. Garner, the plantation owner, has died, and the plantation is now being run by a man called School Teacher. So School Teacher is now this really awful owner, as opposed to Mr. Garner, who they had this kind of comfortable life with. So the slaves at Sweet Home have now decided to run away, and they are not able to do it all at once, so they do it in stages. So at first, Sethe sends the children away and they go to be with their grandmother, baby Shugs. And then the plan is for Sethe and Hallie and the men to all run away together. The plan changes a little bit because Sethe is now pregnant, and of course there's a problem with the whole plan. When Sethe arrives at baby Shugs' house, she now has a fourth child because she's given birth on the way there. So she now has 4 children, and she has gone through some unspeakable things. And a month passes, and she's enjoying this life of freedom, and something happens. Someone comes to take her, she thinks, to capture her, take her children back into slavery, and she decides that she would rather sacrifice them. She would rather kill them than have this happen to her family, to have this happen to her children. We don't know this. This happens later. In the beginning of the story, we meet Sethe and Denver. Sethe is the runaway slave. Denver is the daughter that was born to her on her way to emancipation. And her other children, who she had sent before, have now gone for one reason or another. Her mother-in-law, who she ran away to, has now died. And so this house they live in is called 124. The house has a name. And at the beginning of the story, we meet Paul D, who is one of the men who lived on the plantation that Sethe ran away from. And when he comes, we meet Sethe and Denver and the ghosts who inhabit the house. So that is when the story becomes a little supernatural. The ghosts are a constant presence in the house, and people can hear them from the outside, so no one actually comes into their house anymore. So they've been living kind of in isolation for years. Denver doesn't leave the house, and Sethe, who is like a bridge between the house that is haunted and the rest of the world, because she goes out to work every day. So at the beginning of the story, we meet her, we read her backstory, we read her plight a little bit. And then Paul D comes. Paul D is one of the former slaves from the Sweet Home plantation. And through their interaction, we get to understand the backstory. We get to understand why she ran away, how she ran away, some of the things that have happened. But Paul D has been missing now for 18 years. So what he knows of her is what he knew of her as a young woman. He doesn't know the things that have happened since the last time he saw her. So as the story progresses, Paul D is a part of it, but he is only a part of the end of her story, not the middle. So other people come into the story to tell Sethe's story. What makes it so interesting is that the book is not entitled Sethe. The book is entitled Beloved. Beloved is Sethe's daughter. Beloved is the daughter that Sethe lost 18 years prior. Beloved was her 2-year-old baby who was killed, and her ghost is one of the ghosts that haunt the house when Paul D comes, and he exercises the ghosts that are in the house. He shakes the house until he wins, and it is very interesting what happens later. Beloved becomes a very present part of the story. The cleverness of this story is that it transcends genres. It is considered to be literary fiction. However, there are paranormal themes, supernatural themes. There is magical realism. Throughout reading this book, I wasn't sure what was happening. Is this a dream? Is this one person's like hallucinations? Is this their wish for what would happen when things happen, when the supernatural, paranormal things would happen? I'm thinking to myself, is this reality? Is this the reality of Sethe's life? Or is this her ramblings? This is the ramblings of a person who has lost so much. There are so many quotes in this book that you want to just kind of hold on to. There is a very moving discussion of slavery, about the realities of slavery, how, you know, women would have children, but the children didn't belong to them. The children belonged to the slave owners. So the woman would have a baby, and she wouldn't even be able to nurse her baby, because nursing the baby meant that she would not be able to go back to work. So the women who worked in the fields, they would get pregnant, they would have to get pregnant, they would be impregnated, they would have these babies, and as soon as they were strong enough, or maybe even before, they would be sent back to the fields, and the child would be left behind to be nursed by a single woman. So there would be a woman on the slave plantation who her job would be to nurse these babies. And in this particular story, we read a little bit about Sethe's childhood and how she didn't know her own mother because she was nursed by a one-handed woman who lived on the plantation that she grew up on. Her mother didn't really know her, and you're learning the details of her childhood, and you're thinking, how did this impact the decisions that she has made for her own children as she has grown up? The genius of this book is that it doesn't just describe one single family. It doesn't just describe Sethe and Beloved and Denver and the house in 124. It becomes a description of slavery. It becomes a representation of the horrors that was slavery in the Americas. This story, this novel, is told in multiple voices. Each character has an opportunity to tell their own story, and so every character gets a chance to tell their own story, why they do the things they do, what their internal motivations are, their feelings, their yearnings, even the things that they will never tell anyone else, they tell you. And so you get a chance to see everything happening, to engage with all the characters, to feel for all of the characters. This shifting perspective creates a situation where there are multiple protagonists, and it achieves an intimacy that's not often experienced. Beloved is a wonderful novel, and it is deserving of all the accolades that have been lauded upon it. Toni Morrison deserves all the praise that she has received. Without having read any of her other books, I could tell you right now that she deserves that Nobel Prize. She deserves that Pulitzer Prize. And so when I was reading this, even at the moments where I stopped and my heartstring, I felt like a tugging at my heartstrings, because, you know, I'm picturing all these people, all these women who came before me, all my ancestors who were enslaved, all the things that they experienced, and all the hopes and dreams that they probably couldn't even give a voice to, and that we are now living in this present day. Even as I was thinking that, I was just marveling at how well crafted this book was. So I gave this book 5 stars long before I finished it. In the middle of the book, I knew it was going to be a 5-star. In the beginning of the book, I knew it was going to be a 5-star rating. So this is the first book that I have read so far for my Pulitzer Prize winning novel reading project. So I just wanted to share that with you. And the next book on that Pulitzer Prize winning list that I'm going to read is the Olive Kitteridge stories, and I look forward to sharing that with you sometime soon. So thanks for watching my little video, and we'll talk later. Okay, have a great day.